Is that a field with some flowers in it? Oh no, I know what this means. Everybody run! Ladies, gentlemen, and killers of all ages. Okay, don't judge me, that's the technical term for the player character in the game, okay? Wo Long Fallen Dynasty has been building up a little bit of hype in the Soulsborne community since its announcement, and with it finally releasing next week, we have just now gotten a demo to let players actually get their hands on the game before deciding whether or not they want to purchase the full thing. I have gone through the entire demo, getting in there as soon as it was released, and I thought it prudent to share my first impressions and thoughts on the game based on the first 2 to 3 hours of gameplay, depending on how long it takes to get through the harder parts. First up, there is definitely some challenge to be had here. Not with every single enemy, but like you may expect from a Souls-like game, every enemy can kill you, and it's not particularly hard for them. At least at this early stage in the game, your health bar is quite low and your healing is quite sparse. It only takes a few hits, even from random grunt mook, to murder your full stop. That said, once you start to get a handle on the basic mechanics, it does actually start to feel quite smooth. There is a deflection system much like a parry conceptually, where if you time it right, you lightly flinch your opponent and decrease their spirit bar while raising your own. Spirit in this game is like a mix between poise and power. It has a negative meter and a positive meter. Using your strong abilities like magic or weapon skills known as martial arts will spend your spirit power, whereas if you max out the negative side of your own spirit gauge, you'll be locked in a recovery animation for a couple of seconds. If you can reduce an enemy's spirit gauge to be full negative, then they will stagger and give you a critical hit opportunity, called a final blow. There is also the ability to dodge attacks in this game, though in my experience so far, really you will mostly be hard guarding just by holding the guard button or deflecting, as deflecting has the same effect as dodging but with far more positives to gain. And the actual deflect window is relatively comfortable too. Later in the game there may be undeflectable attacks, but up until the end of the demo everything can be deflected. Even a gigantic boar charging you down can be deflected. As far as general mechanics, a lot of this will feel familiar to Souls players. There are battle flags which act as equivalents to bonfires, acting both as checkpoints where you can spend the chi points that you accumulate through battle to level up one of 5 choices. Each of these 5 choices, or paths, has different benefits, boosting different stats, and different weapons scale with each of these 5. This is a bit interesting as there are weapons that scale with the same skill that gives you max HP, for example, so you can just focus on bumping up your max health and then find a weapon that scales with that attribute anyways. That said, there seems to be much more damage found elsewhere through the other paths. For example, this game has a whole magic system with spells tied to each of the 5 elements, and every few level ups you'll gain the ability to unlock one new spell for each element. However, you can only use certain spells if you have enough level up points in the respective path, and also enough morale points. You can equip 4 spells at any given time, and the magic system is actually quite fun. It is a good mix-up to the combat. Some of them are just offensive skills, like fire coming out in front of you. You can make a lightning bolt come down from the sky where your opponent is standing, or you can even summon earth armor to bolster your defenses and make you all but immune to flinching mid-attack. The ideal way to play this game is absolutely a mix of melee and magic, not just one or the other. On top of that, you can have a ranged weapon equipped at all times, so we'll all be using those as well, and you can actually have 2 melee weapons equipped as well to swap between them. A personal favorite that I picked up near the end of the demo was these double marquee halberds, essentially just dual axes, and it just felt really good to use them. There was also a quarterstaff type weapon that I enjoyed quite a bit. You start off with a basic sword at the beginning. Early on you unlock a reasonably interesting polearm, and after the first boss you get a great big hammer, so don't worry about weapon types, there are quite a few of those going around, and the big ones that I've tried so far all feel reasonably good to use too. Within the demo you get 2 full levels to go through. They are mostly pretty linear paths. There are a couple of shortcut unlocks and a couple of secondary paths, but for the most part I wouldn't describe this as an open world game by any means. Simply levels full of enemies that you slowly work your way through. There is a morale rank system, which is both the numbers above your enemy and the number above your own health bar. Your morale rank is increased by points gained with every battle flag or marking flag that you put down, as well as every time you do a fatal strike you actually gain some morale points too. This resets on every different level, every different map, every different chapter, whatever you want to call them, and is separate from actual player levels. For every morale rank that you have, you will hit harder and take less damage, and the same goes for enemies too. If your morale rank is lower than the enemies that you are facing by a significant amount, it may well be worth going back and trying to find some points elsewhere within the level. As well, if you die to any enemy, you'll lose half of your chi, which are your level up points, and also you'll lose a morale rank, which will be granted to the enemy that slayed you. For regular enemies, if you kill the one who killed you in the last life, you both get your chi back and also get your morale rank back too. For bosses, you just have to start the fight with them once again. Most enemies also have a type of attack called a critical blow. This is when they are flashing red, and if you deflect them during this, it will inflict heavy spirit damage. But against bosses, some also have specifically unique parts of their bodies, and if you deflect a critical blow from that part, you will actually full-on dismember the boss for a bit, disabling their ability to use their strongest attacks, the parts that they had that limb for. Eventually, they will regenerate the part though, so they do get to do this again. This sort of makes a nice satisfying loop in a boss fight where you break the part, they regenerate it, and you break it again. I find this to be quite an interesting mechanic in its own right as well. With that out of the way, I've explained the majority of the mechanics that this game has in play, at least in the demo, so let's dive into what you really want to hear in this video. How does it feel, and what is my opinion of the demo itself? Well, to put it simply, I had quite a bit of fun with this game. It definitely feels unique within the genre, and has some interesting systems to it as well. The combat with the weapons that I had available to me was quite fun to do, and sadly, right at the end of the demo, a new weapon drops that sounds super interesting that I really wanted to try, but you don't get the chance to actually equip it before the playable portion ends. As far as general enemy combat goes, it was pretty good. It felt hard to just run by things for the most part, incentivizing actual combat on top of the morale rank reasons to do so as well, and there was a mechanic known as Vengeance too, where if a different player was defeated by an enemy in their own world, they could have a bonus morale in your world to reflect their victory. Defeating these enemies is worth a bit of extra rewards as a result, and this keeps you on your toes as well, changing up the levels every time you go through them. As far as the bosses themselves, I was pleasantly surprised by the first one. The first boss that you face has multiple phases. In the first one, he's just a big dude with a big smacky hammer, a reasonable challenge but not overly difficult, and then once you defeat his initial health bar, he will transform. He becomes a bit demonic and has a big, gross extendo arm of doom. That's probably not the official name, but I stand by it. When you include both phases of this fight, I found it to be a genuine challenge as someone who has hundreds and hundreds of hours playing similar games, and it took me more tries than I'm proud of to actually get through this. I really enjoyed this fight though, and defeating it was a moment of genuine satisfaction. It had a good rhythm, and I had fun doing it. Aside from this though, which I would label as a main boss, there are two other bosses in the demo that are just sort of alright. I wouldn't really count them as main bosses as much as the first one. They're just sort of bosses with a health bar of a boss and a moveset of a boss, and they're big imposing enemies. Their movesets are interesting, they're both demonic creatures, which is fun to fight as well, as opposed to a mostly human enemy like the first one. They're hard to stagger and flinch out of attacks, but I found them significantly easier to fight. These bosses are a big old monkey guy and a giant demonic boar. The monkey was a bit tough, it took me a few tries to get it down simply due to my own impatience, but the rhythm of the fight was nice to learn and it didn't take too long to actually get under my belt. The third boss, unlike the other two, felt just a touch too easy for me. By this point you've unlocked your first Divine Beast, which is a sort of super move that you build up, and if you save it for the boss, all you have to do is trigger Divine Beast, do a couple of hits, and you'll get a free final blow very early in the fight. Then suddenly the boss is at half health before it's even actually done anything. Even outside of that, its general moveset just felt a bit lacking compared to the other two. Overall, I think the demo was an enjoyable experience, and for it being the first section of the game, it was quite fun. But as far as bosses go, it's sort of hard to tell how the game will be on the whole in the actual full game. If most of the bosses are more like the first one in this demo, and that's difficulty, there should be some really enjoyable fights to go through within the game. If they are closer to the other two, however, it definitely won't be quite as challenging and won't be quite as satisfying, so while I think the game is definitely worth checking out for anyone who likes this genre of games, and the demo is absolutely worth a try given that it's free, my feelings for the full game are as of yet undecided, as it really hinges on what the majority of the bosses are like compared to the first few that you have access to within the demo. To sum things up, the mechanics have some depth and they are quite interesting, at least in my opinion. There is decent variety of weapons with different movesets, strengths, and weaknesses even within the demo itself. Combat on the whole felt quite fun to me, with one of the three demo bosses being a genuine bit of challenge. It wasn't a mind-blowingly good experience necessarily, it hasn't raised my hype meters into the stratosphere or anything like that, but the game is fun, it's good, and I look forward to playing it myself on release. I hope you all got something out of this experience, a bit of knowledge to help form your own opinions on the game, and of course getting to watch some proper gameplay of it in the hands of a new player like myself. Again, if the game interests you at all, just go out and give the demo a try. It is live and playable now for everyone, and, well, it's free, so you lose nothing by giving it a go. Personally, I look forward to the release of this game in a week. What about all of you? Like if you liked the video, subscribe and hit the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice. to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.